don't miss July. If you think the planting season is already over, your garden may be about to make one of the most common summer mistakes. A lot of gardeners start strong in spring. They fill every bed. They sow lettuce, radishes, peas, onions, herbs, beans, and early greens. For a few weeks, everything feels exciting. The garden looks full. The harvest basket starts filling up. And then July arrives. The sun gets hotter. The spring crops finish. A few plants bolt. A few rows turn empty. And slowly, without meaning to, the garden starts losing momentum. This is where many gardeners stop planting. They look at the heat and think, well, that's it. I missed my chance. I'll try again next spring. But that is not true. July is not the end of the gardening year. For many home gardeners, July is the beginning of the fall harvest. Those empty spaces left behind by spring crops are not failures. They are opportunities. A bare row after lettuce can become beans. An open patch after garlic can become carrots. A tired corner of a raised bed can become kale, beets, radishes, herbs, or greens that carry your harvest deep into autumn. And here is the part most gardeners never realize. Some crops actually perform better when planted now than they do in early spring. Warm soil helps seeds sprout quickly. Long summer days push strong early growth. Then, cooler fall weather improves the flavor, texture, and sweetness of many crops right before harvest. So before you put those seed packets away, before you let that empty soil sit bare, and before you assume it is too late, let's go through 12 crops you should plant in July for a fall harvest. Some are fast, some are hardy, some are perfect for raised beds and containers, and one near the end may surprise you, because most gardeners think it belongs only in spring. Let's start with one of the quickest ways to turn an empty July bed back into food. Number 12. Bush beans. Bush beans are one of the easiest crops to plant in July because they do not ask for much. They do not need a tall trellis. They do not need weeks of indoor seed starting. They do not need complicated care. You can take an empty space, sow the seeds directly into warm soil, water them well, and watch them move fast. That is why bush beans are such a smart crop after spring lettuce, radishes, early peas, or garlic. Those crops often leave open garden space right when July begins, and bush beans are ready to use it. The reason July works so well is the soil temperature. Bean seeds hate cold, wet spring soil. In spring, they can sit there slowly, struggling to germinate. But in July, the soil is already warm, and that warmth wakes the seed quickly. To plant them, sow bush bean seeds directly about 1 inch deep. Space the seeds about 3 to 4 inches apart. If you are planting in rows, keep rows about 18 inches apart so you can reach in and harvest. If you are using a raised bed, you can plant them in short blocks instead of long rows. For containers, choose a pot at least 10 to 12 inches deep. A wider container is better than a tiny one because bush beans like steady moisture and good root space. The mistake to avoid is planting them and then watering too lightly. July soil can look damp on top and still be dry underneath. After sowing, water deeply so moisture reaches the seed zone. Then keep the soil evenly moist, not soggy, until seedlings are established. A helpful beginner hack is to mulch around the plants once they are a few inches tall. Straw, shredded leaves, or fine compost can help keep the soil cooler and reduce watering stress during hot afternoons. And here is a useful fact. Beans are legumes. That means they can work with helpful soil bacteria to take nitrogen from the air and store it around their roots. In simple words, beans do not just give you a harvest. They also help feed the soil for the crops that come after them. So if your July garden has a bare spot and you want a quick win, bush beans are one of the best places to begin. Number 11. Carrots. Carrots are one of those crops that feel simple, but July gardeners often forget them. Many people sow carrots once in spring. If they grow well, great. If they fail, the seed packet goes back into a drawer until next year. But July can be a powerful carrot planting window, especially if you want sweet roots for fall. The reason is timing. Carrot seeds can be slow and fussy at the start, but once they germinate, the plants can grow through late summer and finish as the weather cools. That cooler fall weather often improves the flavor. A carrot harvested in autumn can taste sweeter, deeper, and more satisfying than one pulled during hot weather. Carrots should be sown directly where they will grow. Do not start them in trays and transplant them later. The root is the crop, and when that young root gets disturbed, it can fork, twist, or grow into strange shapes. To sow carrots in July, prepare a fine, loose seed bed. Remove stones, sticks, and hard clumps if you can. Make a shallow drill about 1/4 inch deep. Water the drill before sowing, especially if your soil is dry. Then sprinkle the seeds thinly, cover lightly, and press the soil gently. Once the seedlings are up, thin them carefully. For smaller carrots, leave about 2 inches between plants. For larger main crop carrots, give them closer to 3 inches. The big mistake to avoid is letting the seedbed dry out before germination. Carrot seeds are tiny, and they can take time to sprout. If the top layer of soil dries out during that waiting period, the whole row may come up patchy or not at all. Here is a simple gardening hack. After sowing, cover the row with a board, burlap, or light shade cloth to keep the soil moist and cooler. But check every day. The moment you see tiny green seedlings, remove the cover so they get light. For older gardeners or anyone who struggles with tiny seeds, seed tape can make carrot planting much easier. It spaces the seeds for you and reduces the amount of thinning later. And here is a surprising detail. Carrots were not always orange. Older cultivated carrots came in purple, yellow, red, and white. Orange carrots became popular much later. So if you want your fall harvest to feel special, July is a great time to try a colorful carrot mix. Carrots take patience, but they reward you later. Plant them now, protect the seedbed, and your fall garden can give you some of the sweetest roots of the year. Number 10. Beets. Beets are one of the most useful crops to plant in July because they give you more than one harvest from the same space. You get the roots later, but you also get the greens earlier. Young beet leaves can be used in salads, soups, stir-fries, and sautés. That means even before the roots are ready, the crop is already working for you. July sowings are especially valuable because beets grow through late summer and then finish in cooler fall weather. That cooler finish can improve sweetness and texture. If you have only grown beets in spring, a fall beet harvest may surprise you. To plant them, sow beet seeds directly about ½ an inch deep. Keep rows about 12 inches apart. Once seedlings are up, thin them to about 3 to 4 inches apart for medium roots. If you want larger beets, give them more room. Now, here is something beginners often do not know. One beet seed is not always one seed. It is usually a small cluster. That is why several seedlings may sprout from the same spot. Do not worry, just thin them gently and use the tiny leaves as baby greens. The mistake to avoid is irregular watering. If beets dry out badly, then suddenly get soaked, then dry out again, the roots can become tough, cracked, or uneven. July heat makes that problem worse, so steady moisture matters. A helpful hack is to mulch the row once the seedlings are a few inches tall. Mulch helps hold moisture, keeps the soil cooler, and reduces weeds. That is especially helpful for gardeners who do not want to water every single day. For container gardeners, beets can also grow well in a deep pot. Choose a container at least 10 inches deep, keep the soil evenly moist, and do not overcrowd the seedlings. And here is the fascinating detail. The deep red color in many beets comes from natural pigments called betalains. Those pigments are so strong that beet juice can stain your cutting board, your hands, and sometimes anything else it touches. Beets are practical, colorful, and generous. If you plant them in July, you are not just planting roots. You are planting greens now, and a fall harvest later. And next, we move into one of the strongest crops for gardeners who want food that keeps coming after summer begins to fade. Number 9. Kale. Kale is one of the most dependable crops you can plant in July for a fall harvest. If your garden starts looking tired in midsummer, kale brings it back to life. It grows through late summer, handles cool weather beautifully, and keeps producing leaves long after many warm season crops have slowed down. The best part is that kale does not need to be harvested all at once. You can pick a few outer leaves, leave the growing center alone, and the plant keeps making more. That makes it perfect for home gardeners who want steady harvests, instead of one big crop that has to be used immediately. July works well because kale seedlings can establish during warm weather, then mature as the season cools. And many gardeners notice that kale tastes better after cool nights arrive. The leaves often become sweeter, softer, and less sharp. You can sow kale directly in the garden about ½ an inch deep, or you can start seeds in small pots or plug trays if your beds are still full. If July is very hot where you live, starting kale in trays under light shade can give you stronger seedlings before transplanting. Once the plants are ready, space them about 18 inches apart. That may look like too much room at first, but kale can become a large, leafy plant by fall. The mistake to avoid is planting kale too close together. Crowded kale gets poor airflow, weaker leaves, and more pest pressure. Give each plant space, and it will reward you. A helpful senior-friendly hack is to plant kale near the front edge of a raised bed or in a large container close to the house. That way, You can harvest the lower leaves without reaching too far or stepping into the bed. And here is a fascinating fact. Kale belongs to the same species as cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, and collards. They all came from the same wild plant, but gardeners selected different parts over many generations. That is why kale feels so strong in the fall garden. It comes from a family built for cool weather, steady growth, and long harvests. If you want one July crop that keeps giving, kale deserves a place in your garden. Number 8. Swiss chard. Swiss chard is the crop many gardeners overlook, and that is a mistake. When lettuce bolts, spinach struggles, and tender greens give up in the heat, Swiss chard often keeps going. It can handle summer better than many leafy crops. And then it becomes even more useful as the cooler days of fall arrive. It is also one of the most beautiful vegetables you can grow. Some varieties have bright red stems. Others have yellow, orange, pink, white, or deep purple stems. In a raised bed or container, Swiss chard can look almost like a flower border that happens to feed you. July planting works because chard seedlings grow quickly in warm soil. Once established, the plants can produce leaves for weeks. You can harvest small tender leaves for salads or let the leaves grow larger for cooking. To plant Swiss chard, sow seeds directly about ½ inch deep. If you want baby greens, plant closer together and harvest young. If you want full-size plants, thin or transplant them to about 12 to 18 inches apart. You can also start chard in modules if your beds are full. Unlike carrots or radishes, chard can handle transplanting if you are gentle. The mistake to avoid is harvesting the entire plant too early. Swiss chard is much more valuable when you treat it as a cut and come again crop. Pick the outside leaves and leave the center growing. That way, one plant can keep producing again and again. A helpful hack for hot July gardens is to give young chard afternoon shade for the first couple of weeks. A light shade cloth, a taller crop nearby, or even a container moved into morning sun can reduce stress while seedlings are small. And here is a surprising detail. Swiss chard is closely related to beets. Beets were selected for swollen roots, while chard was selected for big leaves and thick stems. So when you grow chard, you are basically growing a beet cousin that puts its energy above the soil instead of below it. Swiss chard is reliable, colorful, and forgiving. If your July garden needs something that looks good and keeps producing, this is one of the smartest crops to plant. Number 7. Turnips. Turnips may not sound exciting, but they are one of the most practical fall crops you can sow in July. They grow fast, they use space efficiently, and they give you 2 different harvests, tender greens and crisp roots. This is exactly the kind of crop that helps a gardener feel in control again when summer beds start opening up. A patch that looks empty in July can become turnip greens in a few weeks and roots later in the season. Turnips work well for July planting because many varieties mature quickly. Some can be ready for small roots in about 6 to 8 weeks, depending on your weather and variety. That makes them useful, even when the season does not feel very long. To plant them, sow seeds directly about 1/4 to ½ an inch deep. Space rows about 12 inches apart. Once seedlings appear, thin them to about 3 to 4 inches apart for small tender roots, or 5 to 6 inches apart if you want larger turnips. The mistake to avoid is letting them dry out during root formation. Dry soil can make turnips woody, sharp, and disappointing. Steady moisture gives you better texture and milder flavor. A helpful beginner hack is to harvest some turnips early when they are about golf ball size. Smaller turnips are often sweeter and more tender than oversized ones, and do not ignore the greens. Turnip greens are a real crop, not a leftover. You can cook them like kale or mustard greens, and they are especially useful in fall when fresh leafy harvests become more valuable. Here is an interesting fact. Turnips have been grown for thousands of years and were once one of the most important storage crops before potatoes became common in many places. They fed people and livestock through cold seasons because they were dependable and easy to grow. That is the real strength of turnips. They are not fancy, but they work. And in a July garden, crops that work are the ones that keep your harvest going when other plants are already finished. Now, we are halfway through the list. We have covered beans, carrots, beets, kale, Swiss chard, and turnips. But the next crop is where July planting starts to feel really exciting because most gardeners only know the small spring version and completely miss the bigger fall harvest. Number 6. Winter radishes. Most gardeners hear the word radish and think of the little red spring radishes that grow quickly, taste sharp, and disappear from the garden in a few weeks. But winter radishes are different. These are the bigger, stronger, more impressive radishes grown for fall harvest. Daikon radishes, black Spanish radishes, watermelon radishes, and other winter types can grow large, crisp roots that are perfect for slicing, roasting, pickling, grating into slaws, or adding to soups. And July is one of the best times to sow them. The reason is day length. Many winter radishes do not like being planted too early in spring because lengthening days can push them toward flowering before they make good roots. But when you plant them after midsummer, the days are slowly getting shorter and the crop is more likely to focus on building those big fall roots. To plant winter radishes, sow them directly where they will grow. Do not start them in trays. Like carrots, they dislike transplanting, and disturbed roots can become twisted or misshapen. Sow seeds about half an inch deep. Keep rows around 12 inches apart. Once seedlings are growing, thin them to about 4 to 6 inches apart, depending on the variety. Large daikon types need more room than smaller round types. The mistake to avoid is planting them in hard, rocky soil. Winter radishes need loose ground so the roots can push down smoothly. Before sowing, loosen the bed, remove stones, and break up hard clumps. A helpful hack is to plant winter radishes after early potatoes, garlic, lettuce, or peas. These crops often leave empty space right when winter radishes want to be sown. And here is a fascinating detail. Daikon radishes are sometimes used by gardeners and farmers to improve compacted soil. Their long roots can push deep into the ground, and when they break down, they leave channels that help air and water move through the soil. So winter radishes do more than feed you. They can help open the soil for the next crop. If you want a fall harvest that feels bigger and more impressive than ordinary spring radishes, plant winter radishes in July. Number 5. Lettuce in July sounds like a bad idea at first, and if you treat it like spring lettuce, it can be. Hot soil, strong sun, and dry weather can make lettuce bolt quickly, turn bitter, or fail to germinate at all. That is why many gardeners stop sowing lettuce once summer arrives. But the trick is not to grow July lettuce the same way you grow April lettuce. In July, lettuce should be treated as a protected, quick harvest crop. Choose heat-tolerant loose leaf varieties, romaine types, or baby leaf mixes. Do not wait for giant, perfect heads. Instead, grow it for young, tender leaves that can be harvested before the plants become stressed. Sow lettuce seed very shallowly, about 1/8 to 1/4 inch deep. It should be barely covered. Keep the soil moist, because lettuce seed is small and dries out quickly. If your garden is very hot, start lettuce in trays or containers in a cooler place. A shaded porch, the east side of the house, or a spot with morning sun and afternoon shade can make a big difference. Once the seedlings are sturdy, transplant them into the garden in the evening or on a cloudy day. The mistake to avoid is sowing lettuce into hot, dry soil in full afternoon sun and expecting it to behave like spring. Lettuce germination drops when soil gets too warm, so cooling the seed zone is the secret. A simple beginner hack is to cover the seeded area with shade cloth, a board, or a light tray until germination begins. Check every day. Once seedlings appear, remove the cover so they can get light. For older gardeners, lettuce is also one of the best container crops to keep near the kitchen door. You can grow it in a shallow pot, harvest a handful at a time, and avoid walking across the yard every time you want a salad. And here is a useful fact. Loose leaf lettuce is often easier than head lettuce because you do not have to wait for one big harvest. You can cut out her leaves and let the plant keep growing. So do not give up on lettuce just because July is hot. Grow it young, protect it early, and it can still give you fresh greens for the fall garden. Number 4, spinach. Spinach is one of the trickiest crops on this list, but it is also one of the most rewarding. Most gardeners think of spinach as a spring crop. They plant it early, harvest for a short time, then watch it bolt as soon as the weather warms up. After that, they forget about spinach until next year. But July is when smart gardeners start thinking about fall spinach. Now, this does depend on your climate. If your July is extremely hot, you may need to wait until late July or early August, or start seeds in a cooler shaded spot. But in many northern gardens and milder areas, a July sowing can grow into a beautiful fall harvest. The reason spinach is worth the effort is flavor. Spinach grown into cool fall weather can become tender, rich, and mild. It is one of those crops that reminds you why the fall garden matters. To plant spinach, sow seeds about half an inch deep. Space rows around 12 inches apart, or sow in a wide band if you want baby leaves. Once seedlings grow, thin them so they are not crowded. The mistake to avoid is letting the seed bed dry out. Spinach seedlings have shallow roots, and July heat can dry the top layer of soil very quickly. If the seedlings dry out at the wrong time, they may never recover. A helpful hack is to water the soil deeply before sowing, then use light shade cloth to protect the row during germination. You can also start spinach in small cells in a cooler place, then transplant carefully once the weather begins to shift. And here is the surprising detail. Spinach does not need to become huge to be useful. Baby spinach leaves can be harvested early for salads, sandwiches, eggs, soups, and quick cooking. That means even if your fall season is short, you can still get something valuable from the planting. Spinach asks for more care than turnips or bush beans, but if you help it through the heat, it can become one of the best greens of autumn. Number 3. Arugula. Arugula is the fast win of the July garden. If you are feeling discouraged because spring crops are finished and the garden looks tired, plant arugula. It grows quickly, germinates fast, and can give you baby leaves in just a few weeks. That speed is what makes it so useful in July. You do not need to wait months. You do not need a huge bed. You can fill a small empty space, a container, or the edge of a raised bed and get a fresh peppery harvest before many other crops are ready. Arugula works especially well as a baby leaf crop in midsummer. The goal is to harvest young, before heat makes the flavor too strong or pushes the plant to flower. Sow seeds about a 1/4 inch deep. You can plant them in short rows about 8 to 10 inches apart, or scatter them in a small patch for cut and come again baby greens. Keep the soil moist until the seedlings are growing well. The mistake to avoid is waiting too long to harvest. In warm weather, arugula can turn very spicy and bolt quickly. Pick the leaves young and keep sowing small amounts every couple of weeks if your weather allows. A helpful hack is to grow arugula in a movable container. Keep it where it gets morning sun and afternoon shade during the hottest part of July. As the weather cools, move it into more sun. And here is a fun fact. Arugula belongs to the same plant family as kale, cabbage, broccoli, radishes, and turnips. That is why it has that peppery bite. It is a tiny, fast-growing cousin of some of the strongest fall crops in the garden. Arugula may not be the biggest harvest on this list, but it gives you confidence fast, and sometimes that is exactly what a July gardener needs. A quick crop, a fresh harvest, and proof that the season is not over. Now we are down to the final 2 crops. One is a herb that many gardeners think failed when it bolts, even though it is secretly giving you a second harvest. And the last one is the crop most gardeners only associate with spring, but it may still have a place in your fall garden if you time it right. Number 2. Cilantro. Cilantro is one of the most misunderstood crops in the summer garden. Many gardeners plant it once, watch it grow for a short time, and then get frustrated when it quickly sends up flowers. They think the plant failed. But cilantro is not really failing. It is just moving fast. In July, the secret is to stop treating cilantro like one long season herb. Treat it like a quick succession crop. That means you sow a little now, harvest it young, then sow a little more again later. In very hot areas, late July or early August may be better than the hottest part of the month. But with light shade and steady moisture, cilantro can still earn its place in the fall garden. Sow cilantro seeds directly about a 1/4 to 1/2 inch deep. Space plants about 4 to 6 inches apart if you want full plants, or sow more thickly if you plan to harvest baby leaves. The mistake to avoid is transplanting it roughly. Cilantro grows a taproot, and it does not like having that root disturbed. Direct sowing is usually the easiest method. A helpful hack is to grow cilantro in a container near the kitchen. Give it morning sun and afternoon shade. That way, you can snip small amounts often instead of waiting for one big harvest. And here is the surprising detail. When cilantro flowers and sets seed, those seeds are coriander. So even if the plant bolts, it can still give you something useful. Number 1. Peas. Yes, peas. Most gardeners think peas belong only in spring. They plant them early, harvest what they can, and then forget about them until next year. But in many regions, July is your reminder to start thinking about a fall pea crop. Now, peas do not love extreme heat, so this crop depends on your climate. In cooler northern gardens, July sowing can work well. In hotter areas, late July or early August may be safer. The goal is to get young plants started so they can grow into cooler late summer and fall weather. Choose fast-maturing snap peas or snow peas. They give you the best chance of a useful harvest before hard cold arrives. Sow peas directly about 1 inch deep. Space seeds about 2 inches apart. Give them a small trellis, netting, or brushy sticks right away, because the vines need something to grab as soon as they begin climbing. The mistake to avoid is planting peas into hot, dry soil and leaving them exposed. Water the soil deeply before sowing. Plant in the evening if possible. Then use mulch or light shade to keep the seed zone cooler. A helpful hack is to plant peas where they get morning sun but some protection from the harshest afternoon heat. The east side of a trellis, fence, or taller crop can work beautifully. And here is a useful fact. Pea shoots are edible too. So even if your fall season is short and the pods are limited, you can still harvest tender shoots for salads and stir-fries. That is why peas take the top spot. They prove that July is not the end of the garden. It is the start of a second chance. So there they are, 12 crops you can plant in July for a fall harvest. Bush beans for speed. Carrots for sweet autumn roots. Beets for roots and greens. Kale for long-lasting leaves. Swiss chard for color and steady harvests. Turnips for quick roots. Winter radishes for big fall flavor. Lettuce for protected baby greens. Spinach for cool weather tenderness. Arugula for a fast win. Cilantro for fresh herbs and coriander seed. And peas for that surprising second season harvest most gardeners forget. The lesson is simple. Do not let July fool you. The garden may look tired. The sun may feel strong. Some spring crops may be finished. But empty soil is not the end of the season. It is an invitation. A bare row can become carrots. A finished lettuce bed can become beans. A container near the kitchen can become cilantro, arugula, or lettuce. A raised bed that looks worn out can become the beginning of your fall garden. You do not need to plant everything on this list. Start with 2 or 3 crops that fit your space, your weather, and your family's meals. If your July is very hot, give young seedlings shade. Water deeply. Mulch the soil. Sow in the evening. Start seeds in containers where you can control the conditions. But do not wait too long. Every week in July matters. Every empty space you plant now gives your garden another chance to feed you before the year is over. So this week, choose one open spot, prepare the soil, water it well, and sow something useful. I would love to know what you are planting this July. Are you choosing beans, carrots, kale, lettuce, peas, or something else? Drop a comment below and tell me what is going into your fall garden. If this guide helped you feel like it is not too late, give the video a like so more gardeners can find it before the July window closes. Subscribe for more monthly planting guides, practical garden tips, and simple ways to keep your backyard productive from spring into fall. And if you want to know which vegetables can handle the worst summer heat in containers, click the next video on your screen. Your fall garden starts now.